Welcome to the Bait and Banter Podcast, the ultimate show for everyday anglers and outdoor enthusiasts. Dive into a sea of stories, tips, and tricks as we explore the diverse fishing scenes of the Pacific Northwest. Join us and fellow anglers to share, learn, and laugh. The Bait and Banter Podcast is your hook into the world of fishing and outdoor adventures.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Bait and Banter Podcast. I am so happy to be back. I've been gone for a few weeks, as anybody that listens to the podcast obviously knows. You know, I've had a pretty incredible adventure. So for those that don't know, I got accepted onto the USA Saltwater Kayak fishing team. This is a pretty amazing and it's a pretty prestigious thing. It in my mind, it's a very prestigious thing. I mean, this is it's a kind of a pinnacle, once in a lifetime kind of thing for me. I mean, most people will never get this opportunity, so I'm super fortunate to have had it. I have been in Spain competing or making an attempt at competing, maybe we should say. I was competing in the kayak. Well, the Spaniards call it World Championship Fishing from Kayak Sea. Basically, it's the World Championship from the kayak fishing in the saltwater. And, you know, we went over there and we had planned and kind of, you know, made some strategies, you know, kind of because nobody had been over there. Just kind of some thoughts and some things to work on. And it was interesting to say the least. Anyways, we'll get to that. First off, hey man, we're only a couple of weeks, maybe by the time this comes out, hopefully, only a week away from the 2024 Winter Walleye Social. And already I was there this weekend fishing, and man, the holes, it is filling up with fish already. And this is the earliest I've ever seen it fill up. Typically, I start fishing in there once in a while, a few weeks prior to when the Walleye Social is. And I have the Walleye Social every year on the same weekend, not the same date, but the same weekend in November. And typically that's when these fish will start their transition into the deeper water. This year, they're there a couple of weeks ahead of time. So I don't know if the baits just went down sooner or something. I mean, I did see some bait balls down at 80 foot. But normally when I fish here this time of year, just to go check it out, there are no fish in there yet. There's nothing. In fact, the past 3 years probably, there's been nothing 4 days prior to the event. And then the Friday before the Saturday of the event, we'll go out and I'm just sweating bullets. I'll be just nervous as hell. And twice now, Brandon Savoda, he's been down and he'll go out first drop to catch a fish. And man, I'm just like, yes, they're fucking here. And sometimes, you know, I worry, but they've always been there. Now last year, the fish were there. The fish were really small last year, and there weren't as many. We caught fish. Most everybody caught fish, but there were some people that did not catch fish. And that's the first time that's happened. Most of the time, nobody skunks. This year, the way the fishing has been right now, I am going to assume that unless something like weather or something stops us, nobody should skunk again. You know, I was using, actually went to a 1 ounce sonic bait fish, used it as a blade bait. And I don't know if anybody has seen the videos that I made, but I made 2 videos. One of them I had a Facebook Live and I caught a fish in like less than 2 minutes. And then another one, I did a video of the same thing because I wanted to post it on some other pages, and same thing. Caught another fish in less than just like a minute or something. So, I mean, and I went home with 12 fish, I think, 10 or 12 fish. And, you know, that's all I wanted to eat. But there were some of the other guys out there and absolutely, I guess you could say slayed them. They had a lot of fish. I know one of the guys, he had 24 fish one day, and I don't know how many fish he had when I seen him, but he had a lot, like 2 full stringers full. I was like, what are you doing with all those, man? Because I get nervous. Everybody knows I don't like anybody killing anything over 22 inches. This is a great place to go fish and not find a fish that's over 22 inches. They're better eating anyways. There's lots and lots of little ones, but you know, you don't want to be gluttonous, and we don't want to kill. We have a world-class fishery. We go killing the big ones, it just destroys the fishery, and then all we have left is little ones. So, but there are plenty of little ones, and they'll be in there for a while. Hopefully, when we get there for the walleye social, it's just going to be lights out. So far, every year we have been super fortunate, and the weather has just been on our side. It's always been glass. As of right now, I looked at the weather, and we're supposed to have like 7-mile-an-hour winds or something right now. I mean, a lot can change, so who knows? But that's not bad. 7-mile-an-hour winds coming from the southwest where we're at right there. You won't really have any tiny ripples all from that angle, pretty much. It should be a good time. And if you're listening to this and you're going to it, you've never been to it, man, make sure you bring all your safety gear, life jackets. You want to have a whistle, bring a radio, man. We'll be on channel 72. Everybody bring a radio if you want. It's nice to be able to communicate with one another. But channel 72 there. And then you need to have a dry suit. We really strongly encourage a dry suit. I know that's not a thing for everybody, but at least waders and a belt or something. You want something that's going to, more importantly, save your life if you end up going in. But at least if you've got waders or rain gear on and a belt, then it keeps you out of the elements because you are going to get splashed. There's a lot of moisture in the air, and you will stay warmer a lot longer, and we don't want anybody getting hurt. So I'm going to try and see if I can record this and not have to edit a bunch. So I'm kind of thinking that's not going to happen because I'm always starting over. I've already started this one over like, I don't know, 5 times now. 4 or 5 times now. So anyways, we'll get this thing going. I'm drinking a Hennessy and Coke, and I looked this up because I have some Hennessy cognac, and I never drink that stuff. So I look it up and see if it makes it good with Coke. And they say, yeah, it's a great. They called it a dirty Hennessy. It tastes like shit. Would not recommend it. I'm going to drink it, but it does not taste good. Yeah. Oh, and it's pretty strong. Yeah. Anyways, Spain. First world kayak fishing in the saltwater, as they called it, or however they call it. Basically, it was the world championship for saltwater kayak fishing. Like I said, I had gotten selected for the team, and, probably a month and a half prior to when we went over there, I usually dive off into these rabbit holes pretty deep. I have a tendency to overfocus really bad. And I mean, some things it's really good. Sometimes it's not such a good thing. But for something like this, I'm all in. And I went over. I was asked if I was going to go early enough to be able to fish in one of these tournaments that they had over there. And I said, absolutely, I would. And so one of the coaches, and we'll go over my teammates, but one of my coaches, Lance Clinton, who is an amazing saltwater angler. If you look up his Instagram, Lance Clinton, he has his Instagram is fucking amazing. Like it's every angler's wet dream. Like it's crazy the things that he's got on there. It's pretty badass. Anyways, so Lance asked, said, hey, would you be interested in doing a tournament over there prior to the one that we're doing? And I was like, oh, heck yeah, I'd do that. So he put me in touch with a gentleman named, and this guy is just absolutely one of the most awesome individuals I've ever had the privilege of being around. He is, he's the top saltwater angler in Spain. He's the top freshwater angler in Spain. And he wasn't fishing in this competition. And I'll tell you why he wasn't fishing in this competition here in just a little bit. His name is Antonio. I'm gonna butcher this. His name's Antonio Pradilla Carrasco. Yeah, hopefully that's right. Pradilla Carrasco. Antonio Pradilla Carrasco. And he is from Valencia, Spain. Yes, the same Valencia. I know it wasn't on a lot of our news, but the same Valencia. It was not good. Not good at all. Just my heart is with those poor individuals, those people over there that lost their livelihoods, lost their homes, lost family members, just everything. Yeah, over in Spain, over there where they live, I'm sure some of you guys have been there. This is my first time over there, and the one thing I noticed was they didn't have homes and houses like we do. Even their apartments are not like what we have for apartments here. Everything's built straight up. The streets are super skinny. They drive tiny cars, and they park in their parking spots. There's almost not enough room to open a door to get out of your vehicle. It's crazy how tight everything is. I got a big old huge Dodge diesel that's all lifted and beefed up and loud and all that stuff. And there's no way that I couldn't have drove that down half the streets I went down. It was just so, they were so tight. So when all these floods came through, it was like going down a giant ditch, and it just swooped all these people's cars up. All their cars, all their stuff, and anybody that was in the way, and it just pushed everything to the end of this stuff. I mean, they have photos of like, it looks like 100 or 200 cars all piled up in one giant muddy heap. It was terrible. And this stuff happened when we were there. We were at their aquarium. It's the largest aquarium in Spain. It's the Valencia aquarium. And we were there, and we had been walking around and enjoying it. Went to dinner there. Really nice restaurant in there. Great food. And so we went out. One of my cousin Michael, his wife wanted us to see the dolphins. And so we decided to go to the dolphin show. So we go there, and man, the wind is just howling. Dark clouds everywhere. And they're in the middle of the show, and all of a sudden they go, "The aquarium's closed. Everybody's got to go. Everybody's got to leave. Please go out this gate." I mean, they funneled you to a gate. You all went out, and everybody left. We went home. Turns out they had a tornado not far from there, and I guess that's like the first tornado they've ever recorded or had. That's how crazy the weather's getting. It was not good, and that's just prior to all the flooding. But anyways, I'm sidetracking. Let's get back to where we were at. So I go and I reach out to Antonio, and this is probably a month before I went over there. I've reached out to Antonio, and I just start talking to him. We just start talking, even though, I've never met him, never talked to him over the phone or anything. We're just texting, and you build a relationship that way. And this guy was so forthcoming. He literally helped me with so much. Without the help that we got from Antonio, there's no way that we would have done as well as we did in the 4-hour period we had to fish. There's no way we'd have done as well as we did. And so I went over there about a week ahead of time before the event. Air France was a little bit rough to fly on, but we did it. We got to Paris. They were so late that we missed our connecting flight to Valencia. But we went and begged. I begged one of the front desk ladies, and she managed to get me and my wife on another flight that was a lot earlier, so I could still get there. We got there in Valencia. It was beautiful. Got checked in, got everything going. The next morning, I got up at about 5 a.m. Got dressed, got all my gear, took off, put them in we had rented a Range Rover. Crazy. Those things are so expensive over here. Over there, not even close. Not even close. This thing was so dinged up from people parking it in tight spots and different things. Gorgeous rig. Nice rig. The one thing that I noticed too is all their vehicles over there, 90% of them are diesel. They're super quiet, get great mileage, but they're all diesel. We're over here, we're trying to get rid of this stuff. It doesn't make no sense. But anyways, I keep sidetracking. Now see, this is what I edit out normally, and I'm going to try not to edit it. We'll see what happens. Anyways, so I go and I get to fishing with Tony, and he's showing me some stuff, and he's doing this, and I'm trying to watch him and paying attention. And then it dawns on me, the rods that I brought, I took over some of my favorite rods, and I have some 6-foot 8-inch, some of my jigging rods from NWO from Herod Outdoors that I absolutely love them. If a fish farts on them on your stuff, you'll feel it. You'll feel it. I swear to God, you'll feel it. But I'm over there, and I realize this is not the right action. It's not the right stiffness. It's not right. Like it really messed with everything I was trying to do. So, and I mean, this is an amazing rod that I have. So I'm trying to mess with it, trying to get it done, and it's not quite working out. I ain't catching no fish, but I'm watching Tony. He's got a live scope, and talk about an incredible advantage that you get using that. I mean, I've been around it. I've used it a bit, seen people use it. I've never seen how deadly it can make you as an angler until fishing with Antonio. This guy, he would look at that graph. Not only would he tell you the different types of fish that he was looking at, he'd tell you it's over there 10 feet away, or it's there, it's here, or it's whatever. And he would cast right to it. And then he would like catch that fish. It could be one fish in the middle of nowhere. I mean, the Mediterranean is pretty much, it's a desert, man. It's crazy how there is nothing there. It's just a desert out there. And you find one fish. He'd find it, and then he'd catch it. And I was like, that's freaking awesome. But it was all because he was using that life scope. So anyways, long story short here, Antonio says, hey, let me see one of your rods. And I give him a rod. He goes, this is too heavy. And so he shows me his rod. And I'm looking at this rod, and it's a rod by Savage Gear. And they don't have weights on it. They don't have ratings on theirs. It just says that it's a saltwater rod. This thing looked like a oversized ice fishing rod. The tip of the rod was so fine. It was painted orange even. It looked like it had a strike indicator on the tip. And just the tip was real flexible, super, super fast action. And then as soon as you got into the rest of the rod, it had quite a bit of backbone to it. It wasn't stiff, but it wasn't like noodly, not even close. I was thinking, I own 2 of them now. I was thinking they'd make great hair jig rods, but at any rate, so we're using these tiny jigs, metal jigs, and these were anywhere from 3 grams up to 8, maybe 10 grams sometime. A 10-gram jig was too big, and a 8-gram jig was about perfect, unless you went to like tungsten jig. A tungsten jig, a 10-gram tungsten was about the size of a 5-gram lead jig. And that was a great jig. And then the 15-gram tungsten was about the size of the 8-gram jig. And the whole idea of this fishery is there's no big fish. Well, there are some big fish, but like where we're at, there's basically 0 big fish. So the smaller the presentation, the better. It's crystal clear water, it's warm, and you want that really, really tiny presentation. Well, the other side of this is these fish are extremely pressured. Like they are so smart, it's absolutely incredible. So one of the things that Tony said, hey, he goes, get it to the bottom, pick up so that your jig is setting on the bottom, because we do a jig and then you have a couple other like sabiki hooks above it. And he goes, get it there and you hold it there and you can't move it. So if you've got a wave that hits you, or there's the wind that's blowing you and it's dragging a little bit, they won't hit it. And you think, oh, whatever. No, man, they would not hit it. You'd drop it down, you'd hold it there, and if you did it right, you'd feel thump, 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 they'd bite it. But at first, it was hard not to pull the trigger and set the hook. It was so difficult to hook fish that way. You had to let them bite it, and then once they bit it, he'd go lift, 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 and you just lift it up. Same principle as ice fishing, dead stick. And then you'd see the fish come into your stuff on ice if you're ice fishing, and then you just slowly lift, and that fish will follow it up. And a lot of times they'll smack it because it's trying to get away from them. So it's the same principle. We'd hold it still, they'd bite it, you'd lift, and sometimes they'd smoke it right then. Or you'd lift, then you would give it a jiggle, one jiggle, and they'd hit it then, or you'd start working it like a little mini speed jig, and you'd work it the rest of the way through the column, because you have pelagics, small pelagics. They called them little tunas. They had some Dorado, very small little Dorado, like 4 or 5 pounders, and then they had some amberjacks that were little. Shoot, I don't even know if they made 2 pounds. Just various small pelagics, so you could work the rest of the column up and catch those. And when we were rolling around, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for arcs on the bottom, and then you're looking for those arcs in the center or in mid-column and close to the surface. Well, those mid-column to the close to the surface, those are your pelagics, and then anything from middle down, those are your bottom fish or just your schooling fish. Sometimes you'd find a huge school of obala or porgies or some of the other fish. You try to catch some of those, and those things even got a little bit difficult to mess with, especially the obala. Those are Tony told me those were the hardest fish to catch, and they are. I mean, if you're at a distance and you can cast into them and drop a small sabiki fly through them, they'll jump on it. But if you drift over the top of them with your kayak, and I don't care if you're in 80 feet, dude, they just split. They just take off and disappear. And man, good luck keeping track of this school. It was hard. So we went through this, and Tony is showing me all this stuff, and I'm trying to pay attention. I start bites, and then I start doing better and better. And then I go through a lull. I remember going through a lull, and Tony's just still whacking. So I just put my rod up, and I just went and I started watching. And I was just started to pay attention to Tony to see what is he doing? And, that's where I finally picked up on this technique that they do. And as soon as I picked up on that, then I started catching fish. And I started catching quite a few fish. And it was a lot of fun because even though they're smaller, man, they fight hard, especially the little pelagics, man. It was a great time. So I fished with Tony for the one day of pre-fishing, and then we went, and there was a tournament the next morning. And this is the tournament I had signed up for. Well, I found out that it's a kill tournament. And I asked Tony, I said, hey, so what do you do with the fish? He goes, he says, I really don't want to kill any fish. I go, well, I don't want to kill any fish either. I mean, we do catch, photo, release. You guys don't do that here? He said that we're trying to get these guys to do this, but they don't like change. They don't want to change. And the Mediterranean is so overfished. It is insane. It's just crazy the amount of fish they don't have. I went for a mile and a half one day, and I never saw an arc on my graph. Like, I didn't even see a bump. It was just flat. It's crazy. Jacques Cousteau did a documentary back in the day, back in late 60s, early 70s, and he shows the Mediterranean and all these coral reefs and the beautiful colors and the life and all this different stuff. And then he shows the same area again in the late 70s, early 80s, 10 years later. And it's like parts of it are just an absolute desert. All the coral is gone. Everything's wiped out. And it's from the overfishing or the dragging the nets and stuff that they drag on the bottom to scoop everything up. And they just destroyed everything. And then fast forward to today, there's nothing there. It is crazy how much structure there isn't. If you found a rock pile, and I'll say a rock pile because for me here, a rock pile might be, 5, 6, 7, 10, 15 feet tall. Their rock pile was like a foot tall. All you had to do is find some kind of a little bit of a bump, and there would be above it, there'd be fish. It was crazy how desolate this place was. But at any rate, so these guys, they don't want to do CPR, and that's how we function. Well, I told Tony, I go, look, I don't think I want to kill a fish. I can't do anything with them. I'm not going to eat them. I had nobody to give them to, and I just, I don't think I'm going to do that. So, it says, I don't think I'm going to actually fish the tournament. I think what I'm going to do is I said, I still want to pay. I want, get the souvenir, the shirt and stuff from it. I said, but I want to, I think I'm just going to practice. And he goes, yeah, you can do that. Next morning rolls around, and now I'm definitely like, I'm not going to kill any fish. So we all launch. I get to meet everybody, and they treat me so well. It's like I feel like celebrity status, the way they treated me rather, being part of the USA Kayak Fishing team. And it was really an enjoyable experience there. And we go out, we go fishing. We fish, I think that day it was about a 6-hour event. We come back in, and everybody's, some people have fish. Some people didn't have any fish. I didn't have any fish, but I caught lots of fish. I just didn't keep any. And we go in there, and they bring their fish in, and they're measuring the fish one at a time, which you could have done taking a picture of them. And then they throw them back in these little red bags they got, and they throw them in a pile on the ground. And we were there for, I don't know, I was there for 3 hours after that. And that pile of fish stayed there. There's flies all over it. It was hot as hell, too. And, they didn't put them on ice. I didn't even seen them go anywhere. I don't want to say they were wasted, but I honestly I think they were wasted. And I told Antonio, I was like, these guys want to know why they don't have no fish, and they do that. I couldn't believe it. But they've been fishing there for millennia, man, millions of years, where off our coast, we're 240 years old or something the U.S. is. I mean, and the Indians didn't do any of that stuff that those guys over in Europe, they've, been fishing all over it for, like I said, centuries, and we haven't. So maybe that's the difference. But I was a bit set back on that. Really was. Here we do tournaments. We're not allowed to have kill, period. It's against the law. So it just kind of set me back a bit. So we go through that, and then I spend the next week fishing with Antonio. We go out every day. It's beautiful there. As far as the weather was gorgeous, it's flat out. So we go out every day and we start fishing in the area that is going to be the area that we are having the tournament in, the main big tournament. And we start going to the places, and we have to go so far away to get to where there's any fish. The water temperature, so it was like 76 or 75 degrees Fahrenheit, and there was lots of pelagics around, and the little tunas and stuff, man, they would hit the top of the water and go crazy, and you could throw a jig into them, or even a sabiki rig, they'd hit that. It was a blast. We would go catch all these fish, messing around with the pelagics. The difference was, for the tournament, the water temperature dropped like 5 or 6 degrees in just a few days because it had started to rain. It's the beginning of the rainy season. Well, when the water drops below 18 degrees Celsius, then the pelagics all leave. Well, we hit that 18 degrees Celsius mark. When the pelagics leave, all the bottom fish come in. They go shallow. And we knew this, so we started kind of working towards that as the tournament got closer and closer. It was kind of you really had to know where the fish were going to be and what was going on and have your places picked out. To just go blind and just jump in and start fishing, there's no way you would have caught fish. In fact, one of the teams, they didn't catch any fish. But to back up a little bit, so on day 3, one of my teammates, it is actually on my team, and I'll tell you the rules and stuff here. Michael Barges showed up. I had been renting a kayak from Antonio, and Michael's like, hey, does he have another kayak? I'd love to go out. And I'm like, let me see. And Antonio he has a kayak, and he says, I have a couple, but they're paddle kayaks, and they're like 10 feet long. And he shows pictures of them, and Michael picks out this orange one, and we said, bring the orange one. And so he brings it. Michael's like well over 6 foot. And this kayak looks like he's sitting in a toy. And he paddled that thing 2.5 miles offshore, and the wind came up on us, and he was absolutely drenched. And we'd look back, and he'd just be coming along, coming. I mean, he's die hard as hell, and it was just crazy. No graft, no nothing. He didn't catch any fish, but Jesus Christ, when you go through what he had to go through to even be out there, it's just crazy. I mean, I couldn't believe he did that. I mean, it's just somebody that got the drive. He wants to go out. He wanted to fish, and that's what we did. And it was pretty funny. He was absolutely soaked, frozen, and he went all the way out, like I said, about 2.5 miles, and all the way back in with that as we were going from mark to mark and creating waypoints and finding these fish and all the different species. Poor Michael. We get done doing that stuff, and then the rest of the team shows up. And I got to fish with some of the most incredible people that I met, and some of the most amazing anglers I've ever met. I got to fish with Alan Cinsano, and Alan he's pretty big here in the Pacific Northwest. He is the one that started Northwest Kayak Anglers, which is a group online. He also is the one that started the Oregon Rockfish Classic, which was a great event that is no longer going. He also heads up basically as the regional guy for USA Angling, and he is one of the main people, bosses, if you will, that heads up the USA Saltwater Kayak fishing team. Him and another guy that I got to fish with, David Elgis, and he's also known as Boogie D. Now, you might know Boogie from he had a show on the Discovery Channel, and for the life of me right now, I can't remember the name of it. But if you Google Boogie D TV show, you'll probably find it. It was for one season, I believe he told me. And then I also got to fish with an amazing individual, young lady, Elsa Flores. This gal can fish. She showed up there, and she asked me a couple of questions. What are you doing? How did it work? Blah, 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 blah. I told her this stuff. I showed her the lures. I gave her a bunch of tackle that was working for me and doing this stuff. And she went out there and absolutely killed it on her first day out there, like where other people were going, and everybody has their own mindset. I want to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this. She came with an open mind, and she went out right away and started catching fish. It was pretty cool. And then I fished with another amazing individual from Boston. His name's Eric Harrison. This is one of my teammates. So just real quick, there were 9 people on the team. So they made us split up into 3-man teams. Eric Harrison and Michael Barches were my 2 teammates. Eric, he kind of specializes in like the jigging, smaller jigging stuff. He fishes a lot the exact same way that I do. He's an incredible striped bass angler, though, and he catches a lot of the saltwater fish that are over there off the Boston coast, and it just his knowledge is it's crazy to sit down and listen to some of these people and hear them talk, and either they'll start talking about something and you'll be thinking to yourself, man, I've always thought that, but now I've just got it reaffirmed, or holy cow, I didn't know that. It's crazy what some of these guys will tell you. And then Lance Clinton, he was one of our coaches. There were two coaches, and Lance, he is where he's at in Costa Rica. He's basically like the superhero of fishing, I guess. He's a hell of an angler. Like I said earlier, his Instagram is amazing. You guys check that out, Lance Clinton on Instagram. It's pretty cool, some of the stuff he does. He gets to work with Yozari. He gets to work with Blue Crab Jigs, who makes some great jigs. He works with a guitar company. Yeah, he's got a lot of. He's a cool dude, very cool dude. But the one good thing about having Lance as a coach is if any of us had a question or a problem or something, man, he would go straight in, and he just spit it out. He does not beat around the bush. He just spit it out. And he made some people upset, on the mucky mucks there for Spain. But I mean, we needed to know, you can't beat around the bush on that stuff. And then I got to fish with Guy Marsh, and Guy is this big old huge Texan dude, got that southern draw to him. Again, another amazing angler, and he is our other coach. And him and Lance both live in Costa Rica, and they had the World Championship back in, I want to say March, maybe it was April. I'm not sure when it was. I'm totally wrong on that. When is this? No, it was like June or something. Anyways, I don't know when it was, but anyways, so Guy ended up winning gold on that, and Lance took silver, first and second place. They both did outstanding there. In fact, the whole team did that was there. The USA team did, because they actually got gold on that one. They won the event, which is pretty awesome. I can't wait to be able to get to fish over there. I'm actually going to go to Costa Rica in February and get a fish with Lance and Guy. Go over there, do a little bit of practicing, because I also get to go compete in the next big event in La Paz, Mexico. So I'm looking forward to that. But then I got to fish with also Michael Barges. He was my other teammate, like I had said. And this cat is, I can't say enough kind things about him. He's just an amazing individual. Great fisherman. He's the kind of person that will stand back in the crowd and just listen, take everything in. And then if the opportunity comes up, or if it's something that's important enough, he'll just give a little bit of info. And if you don't want to hear it, then he just stops. If you do want to hear it, he will tell you absolutely everything. The guy is an amazing person. He's so awesome to have as a teammate. I want to get him. He's going to come out here. So sometimes he ends up here in Washington, and we're going to take him out. He wants to go lingcod fishing. So one of these trips when he's lingcod or coming out, we're going to take him lingcod fishing. And I'm really looking forward to that, because we're going to go tie in some big ones up at Nia Bay. So, and then I got to fish with also, and everybody knows who this is, Robert Field of Field Trips. Yep, he is our team captain. And Robert is quite the character. Holy cow, the guy is a character. Funnier than hell. Super serious about his fishing. And I mean, the behind the scenes guy is just, he's a lot of fun. He's very serious. He gets down to the nitty gritty. He wants to win. And I mean, he knows a lot of stuff. He knows not just about fishing, like anything technical. It's just, he's definitely on a different level. You can tell that for sure. But we had a lot of fun. Everybody had a lot of fun out there. It was a really good time. So the whole team came in, and we started, having meetings in the mornings. We had to go down. I forgot. I should back up a little bit. So most of the team shows up. We're there, and my cousin Michael went with me. He flew to Spain about 4 days before the event happened, the main event. And he showed up. He rented a car too, and so he helped out with shuttling people around and getting people, because we were all staying about a mile and a half away from where the kayaks were, and so we were going to have to walk. Well, I had a rental car, and Michael had a rental car, so we could call Michael up at 5 a.m. and he'd be sound asleep and be like, "Hey man, you think you can come get a couple people?" "Oh, yep, absolutely." And he would be there in 5 minutes. It was super helpful. Everybody was extremely grateful for that. he went way out of his way, and it was really good to have him. But we went and had to put the kayaks together. Well, we talk about the kayaks. The kayaks that we had were Galaxy kayaks, and they're a kayak made over there in Spain. And they're not a terrible kayak. They're not up to the standards we have here in the U.S., but for what they were not bad at all. Once you got used to them, they were not too terribly bad. You just knew there were some things you couldn't do in them. I mean, they had next to no secondary. You'd lean and that thing would go over. The first day that Lance Clinton was in his, he flipped. And I'm looking at that shit and I'm like, holy crap, this is a waterman and this guy flipped. And so I'm like, man, I have to be careful. Well, it was like a day later and Michael Burgess flipped. Well, he didn't really flip. His went over and he was going to flip and he bailed. So, and there was no rough water to this. These were calm. It was just a matter of they accidentally turned or leaned or something like that because there's no secondary in them. You just go over. It's kind of like being in a canoe, there's the primary and there's zero secondary. So I was like, holy cow, these are not rookies. So I was real nervous about what I was doing as far as you don't lean over, don't reach out further than your arm will reach if you're next to another kayak. And the other thing I did was I started throwing my legs out because these things were about the shape of a Hobie Revo. So I'd start throwing my legs over the sides, and that helped. That seemed to help sturdy it up, I guess, if you want to say, make it a lot more stable for me. I never came close to flipping at all. I never had any problems. And I'd sit sideways on the kayak and then I could reach into the stuff that was behind me. I think Lance was reaching around behind him with his feet still in the kayak. And he said it just kind of got him off kilter and it flipped. He lost a rod, I believe, and some other stuff. But I found that if I just go ahead and throw my feet over the side of the boat and sit there, there was no problem. So that's what I started doing. And a lot of people that are fishing out of the thinner boats like a Revo, again, they'll do that exact same thing. These things, I don't know if it's hull design or what, they're like skinny barges. I pedaled my tail off. And since Hobie doesn't have the patent on their pedals any longer for the V1s, these guys had a copy of a Hobie V1, and it was a little different. It was all gear driven. There were no cords and all that stuff in there. I mean, it looked like a meat grinder. Like if you put your finger in there while you're pedaling, it definitely would squish it. You'd take it off. It was crazy the way it looked, but I mean, it was surprisingly smooth. I pedaled something as hard as I could, and I think the fastest I got was 3.2 miles per hour. And the fins looked like they were, the big fins. They didn't look like they were, small. They looked like our turbo fins to me. Maybe not. I don't know. But to me, they did. Somewhere they were losing some efficiency. So they didn't go very fast. And that was a thing. Like 2.5, which is, even in my pro angler, I can get 2.5 just casually kicking like nothing. These ones, you had to get after it. And then the other thing that the boat did was when you would go through a wave, there was a wave in front of you. You'd go through a wave. And normally what a kayak will do is it'll pierce the wave, go through the wave, and then go up, kind of come up. These boats legit pierced the wave and went down. And twice when we were in the where the winds come up on us and we're out there, I had the wave break in my lap because the whole kayak was underwater. It was the damnedest feeling I've ever felt. And when your kayak's underwater, that feeling of super instability, oh man, it's not a good feeling. But it would pop up. And the one thing they did do, they were sealed pretty tight because even after all that, I never had but a teaspoon of water inside the kayak. So I was thankful for that. They dove down. It was kind of weird. And again, I don't know if it's hull design shape or what, but it was just a little bit something I wasn't really used to ever. And then they're not fast. They dove. Generally speaking, especially because what the team had gone through in Costa Rica, they worked. They looked cool. They looked great. I loved how they had all of the places to attach things, or they had all of these brass insets where you could put a bunch of Railblazer, and it matched you could just screw them right directly to the hull. So many different places for that. That was great. The seat hurt me. I only ever fished out of it the longest. Well, we fished in them daylight to daylight or daylight to dark almost when we were pre-fishing. But even on a couple of hour trip out there in it. Man, they killed my tail. I definitely was missing the kayak cushion there. It was crazy how uncomfortable the seats could be. But I mean, any kayak, all their seats vary in comfortableness or what have you. I love my Advantage seat on my PA, even my Outback. I do put kayak cushions down, and it does, it helps make it longer. But I mean, as many of the guys know that fish with me, we'll fish 10, 12, sometimes 14 hours in a day in the summer. And in the wintertime, walleye fishing, it's from 8 o'clock, which is just at daylight, to 4:30, which is dark. And then on into the middle of the night if I'm fishing for bigger walleyes. Overall, the experience of the kayak was not terrible, but it wasn't like what you would get out of one of our top tier boats. Would I use them again? If I had to, yeah, I would. There'd be some adjustments that I'd want to make. The rudder cable broke on me like 2 or 3 times. The up and down, to get the rudder up and down, which is really no big deal, but those were breaking. It was just some of the little things. The lines seemed to stretch when you were going along, so your steering was okay, and then it just felt like the cable was stretching so much that by the time at the end of the day, for me, I couldn't make a turn anymore. I couldn't hardly turn the boat because the handle was go all the way down or all the way up for steering, but the boat wouldn't respond. So I actually ended up trading out boats. Alan Sassano had one that he was in there fishing out of, because he's not in the competition per se. He's an alternate. He's basically the guy that's running everything for us, but he's also an alternate. I traded out with him on his boat because his boat hadn't been used, hadn't had time to wear and tear, and where mine was just falling apart. I mean, overall, they weren't terrible. They worked. I enjoyed fishing out of them, even though, it sounds like they were terrible, or, I didn't like them, but they weren't up to our standards, but for they were good. They were good boats. And most of the guys, even the Italy guys, the Spain guys, they were all running Hobies. If they didn't have a Hobie, they were running a Radar 115. A lot of the guys had those. And that's because Antonio fished. That's what he fishes out of. God, that's just fucking awful. Ugh. Hennessy and Coke's not good. Oh, well. So we get down to the day we're gonna fish. We put the kayaks together. We got everything going. Everybody's out there getting used to their boats. This is when people had flipped and getting used to things. We're fishing. We're trying different spots. We're sharing waypoints. We're sharing techniques. I was there a week, so I get the privilege of showing and sharing the techniques with everybody as they came along. And like I said, some people were like, I don't want to do it. I'm going to do this way or that way, because we all have our ideas. And everybody there is an alpha. I mean, everybody is. And everybody there is also an amazing angler. And I don't want somebody telling them how to do it. But, I was sent there. When I went there, I was sent and said, hey, you get as much information you can, and then you help share that with the team. And that was my main focus. That's what I wanted to do. And at first, some of the guys were like, well, I'm going to try this, this, and this and do whatever. And I was like, hey, I did the not catching any fish part. I could do you can just go straight to catch and fish if you want. And I can remember Lance went out, and Lance spent 10 hours out there, and he never caught a fish, never got a bite. And he came back in, he said, all right. And because he asked me how many I had caught. And I think that day I had caught like 12 measurable fish. These are fish that are over 18 centimeters that would have counted in the event. I think I had like 12 or something that day. Anyways, he goes, all right, I got to figure something out. I didn't get a stinking bite. And so then I went over with how I was taught to fish them and the different things that we did and what I was using. And then the next day, Lance went out and he killed it. Then, he started adding that to what he already knows. And he started killing it. So he started catching fish. And when I say killing it, it's hard to kill it out there. Like if you go catch 20 fish, 20 measurable fish in a day, man, you had a great day. A great day. An average day was catching 5 or 6 measurables in a day. That was an average day. So for us, I'm sure there's other people that have way better days, but for us, that's what it was. So anyways, I would share information. tried to share as much as we can. Shoot, I went to the tackle shop. I spent $530 in gear so I could share with the rest of the team for what we had. And I got that replaced back. Lance gave me $300 of that back from the team, because that's what it was for, buying the tackle for the team. And we did that, got everybody set up as best we could. Everybody got there. We all started practicing, jiving. We did our meetings. We did all of our stuff. Everybody supported everybody. It was pretty awesome to be part of something that was this incredible. I got to fish with, like, I'm with the best anglers in the world, like literally competing against and competing with best anglers in the world. I got to do that. That is something that's not, like, that's crazy for me. It's mind blowing. To me, it's an incredible privilege. I'm so blessed to have had the opportunity to get to be on this team. It was just, I can't tell you. I'll never forget it. So, but we go through and everybody's gelling and we're doing all this stuff. So we get to the first day of tournament day. Our captains go in. Each team had a team captain. And my team captain, because me and Eric couldn't speak any Spanish, and Michael could speak some, at least enough to understand. So we were like, Michael, you're going to be the team captain. So he'd go in. They wouldn't let anybody else in the end of the captain's meetings and stuff. So they go in, they get the information, they get our stuff that we're going to give us, little goodie bags or whatever. And he comes back, gives us info, asks us if we have any questions or complaints we wanted to say, and he would go back in and do whatever. And we didn't. We're like, okay, great. So we all had to be down at the beach the next morning. The event went off. Launch was at 9 a.m. in the morning. So we all get down there in the dark about 6 in the morning. I think we showed up down there. Get our kayaks out, get all of our stuff taken care of, get our lines rigged up, get our stuff done, and then get our kayaks taken to the beach. Well, we take the kayaks to the beach. While they're there, that's when they're doing inspections on them and they're looking at our tackle stuff. So that kind of leads me into the rules. And the rules for this were really strange. Well, for what we do. Number one, I was only allowed one rod that could have up to 3 hooks on it. No treble hooks were allowed. All the hooks had to be single hooks. Thank God they let us have barbs. So I could only have one rod with 3 hooks on it. I could have a second rod on the kayak. It could be lined and it could have a clasp or something on it, but that's it. No lures, nothing else. And then if I had a third rod on the kayak, it had to be completely tore down. You couldn't have a reel on it. It couldn't be put together, nothing. So most everybody just had 2 poles. So we're getting our rods rigged up, and I had been tying jigs for the sabiki, and they worked. Man, I was surprised how well they worked. And of course I was tying them, and I was tying them. I was kind of, I would send a picture of them to Tony and say, hey, how's this look? And he'd say a little less, a little less, a little less. I mean, these things were down to nothing. I was like, holy smokes. It's just a hook and some stuff, but that's what they liked. So we would do that. And we got to where we were pulling plugs, little glass minnows from Usari. And, they have treble hooks on them. You had to take those treble hooks off and you had to put one single hook on it. So we put a 1 sidewash hook on the back, and we would troll for what they called little tuna. And they were like just a bonito. They were small, anywhere from 10 inches to, I think the biggest one I caught was probably maybe 21 inches or something, 21 inches. Fight like hell, but not very big. Still fun. We get all this stuff. We're tying up all our rigs, get our stuff taken care of. Come time to go through and get our inspection. And we go to get the inspections, and they look through they're looking through our tackle, they're looking at our poles, they're looking at our hooks. They see some of these plugs on lines. They like literally grab a hold of them, take a look at them. Like, they're looking at everything. Some of the rules that we had with that, we're thinking, okay, well, they're really going to stick to them. Well, we get out there on the water. They let you go up to a launch site, and there is a team in front of us. And I see he's got 3 rods set up, and all his rods have hooks on them. I'm looking at this and I'm like, hey, check this out. And we're like, what the hey? How did we get inspected? How'd they get that? And so, and I'm not going to say what country it was, but we were like, oh, well, I guess he'll get caught. They'll say something to him and whatever. And so, we take off. Well, before I get too far ahead, another rule that was in there was we were not allowed to communicate We had radios, but we were told several times we could only use them in the case of an emergency. So no communication, not even with your own teammates. And you had to stay 30 meters apart, 90 feet. So we had to make sure, me, Eric, and Michael, we had to all stay 30 meters apart. Weren't allowed to talk to one another. None of that stuff. You couldn't say, hey, I'm catching fish over here, come get some. You couldn't do that. Well, as we're out there fishing, one of the teams, not only were they in big clumps, not 30 meters apart, they also were giving coordinates to one another. We could hear it over the radio. It was crazy, so that was a bit of a contention thing for a lot of us out there. Anyhow, so we did us. We stayed away from one another. We did not communicate with one another. We went out there and we did the best we could do, and we fished. And in the end, I personally ended up in 8th place. Robert Field ended up in 5th place. That's individually. We both caught 8 fish. Robert's fish, he had some horse mackerel, and those are a pretty long fish, and I didn't have any of them. So his fish were longer than mine, and that's how he ended up 3 places above me in 5th place. And so he did good there. Me and him were the only 2 U.S. anglers to end up in the top 10. However, with that, my team, me, Eric, and Michael Burgess, we were in 5th place as a team overall. We were like 4 points or something. We weren't very far out of 3rd place. We were close enough to 3rd place that I knew the next day we were going to hammer it. We were going to absolutely crush it. We had our shit together. We knew what we were going to do. We sat down and we talked. We knew where we were going. I mean, we had it. We knew. It was just, we were all 3 going to go ahead and just go, you know what? If they can do it, we're going to do it. And when I say do it, I mean like stay closer together and say hi to each other or whatever. Obviously, there were no ramifications for any of it. So, if they don't matter to them, it shouldn't matter to us. Or we were going to just go out and fish, and I know we were going to kill it. We would have gotten the medals. I know we would have. And that's me having confidence, but I'm telling you, I'm 100% positive we would end up in the medals. Here's the other thing. Mother Nature decided she was going to get in the way. She had other plans. And she let loose her wrath on Valencia, Spain. And overnight, the whole town, we were just outside of town, but town had flooded. Like these big floods came through, wiped out all this stuff, stacked up all those cars, was killing people. It was not good. And we're down there looking to have a fishing event, right? And because of all this rain that showed up, and it's not raining where we're there. And the first part of the morning, there was some pretty serious surf, but it was nothing that those of us here in the Pacific Northwest are not used to. And because outside the surf, it was calm. And when I say calm, there were just no wind waves. There was swells, but there were no wind waves. And in fact, Lance, because they were like, we can't go. All the other teams, they were afraid of it. They were literally afraid of it. Lance Clinton jumps in his kayak, takes off, goes past the bar, if you will, through the opening of the marina, goes out, gets into the soft stuff, and then comes back. And we're like, if he can do it, we can all do it. Let's do this. We wanted to go. Well, then I know some of the teammates from other countries are like, nah, fuck that. We ain't doing it. We can't do it. Can't go. And we're like, well, I thought you guys were used to this. They were telling us they would anchor and stuff. We're like, you're crazy. And then all of a sudden they're like, nope, not going. And of course, the other teams that were not used to it didn't want to go. Well, all of a sudden we hear the standings are going to stay and they're going to be awarded the way they are. And we're like, what? That's not right. And in the rules for Phipps International, the rules say you must complete 6 hours for a competition to count. We fished 4. That means the competition should have just been a wash. So I'm fuming. And I know that Valencia is being just destroyed, but it's so hard to not be an asshole and just be mad that you didn't get fish competing. I mean, that's the competitive side of you or whatever. I mean, but it was, oh my God, it was such a letdown. It was such a heartbreaking deal. But what we were going through was nothing compared to what those poor people in Valencia were going through. It was crazy. It was just not good. So crazy. So many people, the roads were blown out. The airport flooded. Their subway was completely underwater. Everything was a wreck. It was chaos. So they do this, and then that night they're going to do the awards or whatever. And this was kind of, everybody on the team was upset, primarily because of the 6 and 4 hour thing. And because out of everything else that happened, that one rule, having to fish 6 and only fishing 4, that one rule right there should make it a wash, should wipe everything out. Well, we go to the awards, and our coaches are like, hey, you guys keep your heads up. You don't say nothing. We're Team USA, and you do what we do. We just go up there and we do what we do. And that's, and that's what we should do, right? You don't want to be a poor sport. And I don't think anybody was mad enough to the level of being a poor sport. But it was just, a little bit, not that we were mad. It was just, it was a letdown. It was a letdown is what it was. It was a letdown. Anyways, they go through the deal. They do all the awards. And, after a while, there was this meal that was being served. And it was being served in courses, And the poor waitress and waiters and stuff, the meal took forever to get out there. And if you start looking around, you notice this big room, people are leaving. Like, they haven't even gotten their dinner done. People are leaving. And by the time they got to the main course, they started putting all these plates down in front everywhere, all these empty tables everywhere. We watched them pick up all that food gone to waste because everybody was gone. Like, nobody was there. After they did the awards and everybody was kind of talking and doing whatever, it took forever to get something to eat. So I think people just went and got something to eat. It was kind of fun. So we go back and we go back to the room. And now we've got the next day. And the second day that we got canceled is when we went to the aquarium and went and seen some stuff. And that's when the bad portion hit. And it absolutely just destroyed Valencia again. And then the following day, we were like, okay, let's get out of here. So we and we were initially going to take the train to Madrid. And the train has been derailed. Like, it's not going to go, they said, for a minimum of 4 days. And the airport is, one terminal is flooded. Michael Burgess and Eric Harrison, his wife, Guy, took our rental car and gave them a ride super early in the morning because he had taken Tristan, his son. And I forgot to introduce Tristan. Yeah, 21-year-old, an amazing angler. This kid is a live scope guru, and he catches more 12 and 13-pound largemouth bass than probably any human on the planet. It's crazy. He has guide service. He guides with his other 2 brothers, and they run a successful business. It's kind of awesome to see a 21-year-old that is so successful in what he's doing. It's something, as an older individual, you look up to a kid like this. It's just, he's doing every other kid that loves the outdoors' dream, and he's making a go at it, and him and his brothers are making a very successful go at it. And hopefully you guys can keep up. Man, I'm bouncing everywhere, but that's me. So he takes Tristan at 3 a.m. He didn't have any problems. He got to the airport, drops his son off, comes back, and it's about, I go downstairs, I think it's like 6 a.m. or something, and guy says, hey, do you mind if I take Michael and Eric? They need a ride to the airport, and there's no way to get there. And I was like, yeah, go ahead. You won't be gone that long. It's not that far away. I mean, it's 30 minutes away, but I'm thinking, it's not that far away. Well, they left. And it was like 2 hours later, I messaged, and I'm like, hey, man, are you okay? And they're stuck in traffic. And not only are they stuck in traffic, they're going to miss their plane. So Michael and Eric and his wife get out of the rental car and took all of their luggage and hoofed it like a mile and a half to make it to their plane. And they did. They made their plane with about 30 minutes left to go, he said. Michael said that dragging his luggage was incredibly exhaustive, which I can imagine. I mean, I can't imagine doing mine. I had too much stuff. I don't think I would have made it. They made it to their plane, and they get out okay. Guy and Dana, they're going to stay there another day before they have to go anywhere. And the rest of us, because of the train issue, we decided we're going to keep our rental cars. And so we get myself and my wife, and in my car, I had Boogie D with us. And we had just absolutely, there was hardly any room for Boogie in the car. So much luggage in there. And in Michael's rig, they have Michael, his wife Amber, Robert Field, Alan, and Elsa Flores. And they all jump in there. And so I told Michael, so we're going to follow you guys. and he had Alan as a co-pilot. It's a 3-hour drive to Madrid. It took us over 8 hours to get there because we couldn't figure out how to get out of Valencia. All the roads were already washed away. We ended up through some back roads. We had to stop and let Boogie puke. He was just a little hungover. But we stopped and picked some oranges. Oh my gosh, I've never had an orange right off the tree before. Holy cow. This is crazy good. I don't normally eat oranges because of the acid and I have the real bad reflux. I think I ate like 3 in a row. They were that good. So good. So we're stealing oranges from the orange trees, packing them in our car and going down the road and eating oranges as we go. And finally, we end up on a road somewhere where we can get back to one of the main highways that goes to Madrid. And we start the trek to Madrid. Well, we get to Madrid late in the afternoon. We end up at our hotel, and those guys took a taxi to their hotel. And once we got inside, went to dinner and got some sleep. Then the next day we went and we met up with all those guys and we started going around Madrid. And I saw some pretty cool stuff there. The museums were neat. I never thought I'd be one of those people that would stand there and stare at a painting. But once you read the stories on the sides of the paintings and then you look at the paintings are more than a picture. They tell a story. It was actually pretty cool. We did that. We spent a couple days there, had a lot of fun, met a lot of neat people, drank a lot, watched the flamenco dance. That was mesmerizing. Had some great food and then got back on that airplane for the long flight home. And, oh man, that was a long flight. Ended up I think we left Madrid at like 9:00 in the morning. I think our flight took off and we made it to Michael's house at midnight, our time here. And there's a 9-hour time difference. They're 9 hours later than we are. So our early morning here is their nighttime there. Or just starting to get, evening time. Boy, what a long day that was. Then we get up, took off, come home and tried to get used to the mainstream life again, back to work, back to doing things we're supposed to, back to responsibilities. I was over there for 2 weeks and it felt like I was over there for a month. Had a great time. I'm really looking forward to getting to go to La Paz and fish. Like I said, I'm going to go to Costa Rica. I got invited by Lance and by Guy to come over and fish with them in Costa Rica. And I'm going to do it first weekend in February. I'm going to the Puyallup Sportsman Show to do seminars the end of January, 1st of February. Then the next weekend I go to Costa Rica and I come back. And it sounds like the next weekend I go to Portland to do seminars there. It's going to be a busy February. And then at the end of March 7th, the tournament is the 7th, 8th, and 9th. So I'll be a little before that, and probably one day after. That's when we'll be in La Paz competing there. I'm looking forward to that. And, I had a lot of sponsors that helped me out with this. One of the things I want to do is I want to thank all the sponsors that helped this become a reality for me. And I'm truly grateful. This is an expensive venture, and everybody on the team ends up getting sponsors to help them out with some of this stuff, the expenses and different things. And I have always been grateful to the ones that do support me, wholeheartedly during my regular fishing season and stuff like that. But the way these people generously helped me out, it's mind blowing. It's always Max Lures. Man, they sent a ton of tackle that I gave away to not just my team, but different people from different countries and stuff to take over and use. Three Rivers Tackle supported me. Griggs Department Store in Pasco, Washington. Hub International here in Pasco. Solstice Heating and Air. Local 280, my local, the operating engineers. Smart Local 55, the tin benders. My son's a sheet metal worker, and they helped me out as well. And like I say, I'm super grateful to those companies. Oh, and I don't want to forget Beth Wright. She's actually one of my supervisors, and she also donated and helped me out. And again, I'm truly grateful for that. But all these people helped me out. They made this a reality for me, or helped make it a reality. And it's just I'm grateful. I'm grateful for it. It's about time I'm going to go and get sponsors to go to La Paz. We'll see how that works out. That's pretty much the story for here. Like I said, in a couple of weeks, man, we're just down. By the time this is aired, hopefully we'll be down about a week before the Walleye Social. I cannot wait to see everybody come back again. There's a lot of people that have never been that are coming. I'm already got a big bunch of stuff from Max Lures to give out to guys. This is going to be a good one. The fish are there. The fish are thick. And we're just going to have a great time. Right now, the weather looks like it's going to be decent. So, it might be a little cold, but hopefully the wind don't get us too much. I'm just really looking forward to it. Again, guys, thank you for listening. I'm sorry that I'm so back and forth all the time, but hey, that's just, that's me. That's me. Thank you again. Thank you for listening. If you haven't yet, give it a like, give it a follow. Check us out on Facebook. You can check us out on just about any of your podcast platforms. I still got to get on Apple Podcasts. That's been a bit of a bugger. They're picky, but I'm still going to get on there. But most of the mainstream ones, all the rest of them, we are on. Again, thank you very much. I cannot wait to see everybody again at the Walleye Social. Until next time, tight lines.